Let's get this shop open, get the day started. Man, those Lamborghinis sit low, don't they? That's not even as high as my hip. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're here. The monster truck, we put an engine in, and I think Bill did. It's got a little oil leak apparently, so he's back. Hey, let's look at the drums I painted. Oh, look at that. People said, oh, the paint only lasts a month or a week and the wheel lug nuts are going to seize on. That's not going to work. You don't know what you're doing. Like, this is the first time I've ever done it. Just a quick coat of black paint. Perfect. We've gone like 1,000 miles. We're not here to look at the mess. We're not here to check out my fine work, craftsmanship with spray can. We're here for a day in the shop. All you can do is row your own boat. You can't row everybody's boat. Row your boat. Maybe you can reach over and give a little row assist once in a while, but you'll kill yourself trying to do everything for everybody. Trust me, I used to do that when I was younger. I'm too old now. I can't even do it. I'll be stressed out. I'll be wore out and passed out at the end of the day if I just did everybody's work all day. So sometimes I have to step over the mess, and that's okay. I'm used to it. I deal with it. I make it work. Enough rambling. We got a Toyota Yaris with the can problem we have to investigate today. We got a transmission in a Lexus we were supposed to get to yesterday, but we didn't. And I don't know who's going to work on this one. I guess Bill, he originally put the engine in, right? He's been doing mechanical work and brakes and radiators and alternators and water pumps, so he can fix oil leaks, right? Let's see what happens. I got a couple of things I'm going to play with on the project truck, get that going. And everyone will roll in a little while and we'll get the day started. We're having some fun and learning some things. Should be interesting. Stay tuned. Alright, I got my can box hooked up. Stop it. You can see that there's stuff happening on the lines. I got powers and grounds. My tool is lighting up. My scan tool will talk to some of the modules, but not all of them. I can't talk to the ECM, but yet the car runs. It won't run the AC. And it looks like it won't turn the cooling fan on, so there's some kind of an issue going on with that. But my next course of action is to unplug the ECM, and I've already tried that, and it is the exact same symptoms, but it won't run, obviously. So I'm thinking maybe this power steering module, which is the only thing that's talking, might be pulling down the other modules. It's kind of strange. I can talk to it, not the other modules, but when I unplug the ECM, the symptoms are exactly the same. It's kind of strange. Usually they won't run. If the ECM's the problem, the vehicle won't run. So it's corrupting the can line, but still working to some degree, although it looks like I have no cooling fan and no AC, right? Basically, I need to go down there, unplug the steering rack, and see if anything changes with communication on other modules and stuff. You can see here, like yesterday, it says it's not equipped with an ECM because it can't talk to it. But if we unplug modules one at a time, see when the system wakes up, then we'll know which module is the culprit. All the fuses and relays test good. These have a lot of problems with the IG1 relay, IG2 relay, but when those relays go bad, a lot of the fuses aren't powered up, and so that's not what's happening with this car. We have a hard module fault, so now I got to dig into this dash and try unplugging things and see when it wakes up. The power steering module is under the dash here. So we're going to have to take some of these covers off, try to get to that and unplug it, unplug the cluster, those kinds of things. That's what we're doing now. We got up to 4 hours to figure it out. It's like an erector set, like a lot of things. Just keep taking parts off. Okay, we popped off this trim, popped off the A-pillar moldings. The dash is pretty much loose. I got the cluster loosened up, but since it's unplugged, figured I'd try to communicate real quick. On my way to the steering module is under this plastic panel above the column. So if this doesn't make any difference with this, which I don't suspect it will, I'm going to try unplugging that and see if it'll communicate next. Alright, no change there. So we're going to unplug the steering module next. Alright, that's the electronic steering module. So I got that and the cluster out. No changes. Oops, system list. No changes in that, but what I'm going to do is back out of this and have it redo it. See if it can communicate one more time. If it doesn't, then I'm heavily leaning towards the ECM itself. I unplugged it and the symptoms didn't change at all. So it may just be the ECM's not communicating even though it runs the engine. I've eliminated everything else on that CAN bus system. This doesn't have ABS. If it had ABS brakes, then I'd have to unplug that module to try it too. Now that I've eliminated these, the problem is going to be the ECM if it doesn't get better. And that's what it looks like. It's still talking. Whenever it takes this long, it's not talking to it, but it'll wait. It'll try it for a minute or two and then time out and tell you can't talk to it, say it doesn't exist. So that's where we're going to be headed. It looks like an ECM. It's kind of strange. The lady says someone else put the AC compressor on it and then the problem happened. But I'm guessing in reality they put the compressor on it because the AC didn't work and that wasn't what the problem was. Alright, this thing is still cooking. I'm going to check powers and grounds and everything at the ECM, but obviously it runs the engine. It's running right now. Kind of strange. These are pretty unusual when they happen, but at least I got some time to try to sort it out instead of taking a guess from the start, right? Sadly, you can't see inside a module, so it's a little bit of voodoo magic feel to it, but once you prove out powers, grounds, it runs the engine. So I check my battery terminals, I check for AC voltage, all the things that you have to do before you ever get towards condemning a module. I've unplugged everything else from the system, including the ECM itself, and nothing makes the ECM talk on the CAN data bus. So that's where we're going to be headed. I'm going to start putting all this back together. It's going to need an ECM. So we'll see what they want to do with this one. And they don't make it easy to find an OBD2 connector in these bust out my wallet cars or broken mechanical wonder or bring my wallet or Bavarian Motor Works, however you want to say it. 2017 BMW luxury touring sedan. 95,000 miles, about twice the life expectancy. 95,570 if you want it exact. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3, and I'm going to get this thing fired up, and we're going to talk to it and find out why it's upset and put the check engine light on. Well, this thing's trying to boot up in here, and I'm just making some observations before I work on this car. We changed the oil last form, so that's good. That was fairly recently too, but I just think it's funny, the automatic air, it's not on auto, it's on manual, but the passenger said, you know, 60 is just a little too cold for me. I'm going for 61. I don't know why I think that's so funny. This thing's gonna take a sec. Oh, get out of here, Topology. We don't want that. Smart scan. This is probably gonna have you know, between 15 and 30 codes, or it might have 5. We'll see. All right, let's count them and see if I was right. 1, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, I said 15 and 30. It was 14. I was way off. I'm gonna send Katie a copy of this report. We'll stop horsing around. We'll figure out why it has 4 engine codes. A lot of the other codes will probably be voltage related and things like that. Sometimes you get weird airbag codes from putting your dumbbells on the seat or something, or your sneakers, or whatever the case may be. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll come back. I like how BMW says, hey, the rest of the world, you can kiss my ass. We're going to use different codes than everyone else. Don't worry, Mercedes does it too. BMW is not alone. And Audi, I believe, as well. Volkswagen, same thing. ECM 120308, charging pressure control, pressure too low. I believe that's a boost code. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into it. Charging pressure control switch off as consequence. That's intermittent, not permanent. 408. Catalytic converter efficiency too low. That's 180001. Fuel tank ventilation malfunction, intermittent. 190F08. Then you got some steering angle implausible codes, aerial code, exterior mirror, lighting operating, light solar, anti-theft, reduction in brightness due to excess temperature of the lights, ultrasonic sensor, air conditioning control box, jammed button detected. Alright, you know what you can do on these two? If you want to be really tricky and circumvent the BMW nonsense, you can go to OBD2 and pull codes that way. They have to give it to you by law, at least for now, until the politicians decide we don't need that information. By law, they have to give you the codes in a generic form that is easy for a normal human being to understand, not a BMW trained technician. I'm not saying BMW technicians aren't normal. Don't take it that way. We just backed out of that. European OBD2. Now we'll see what happens. It's going to have to give us some intel. I feel like James Bond a little bit. Except for I'm not going to ride my motorcycle off a cliff. Now it'll go through all the protocols and decide which one it likes. There you go. Read fault code. There you go, catalyst efficiency, catalyst efficiency, catalyst efficiency. We got a bunch of cat codes. That's pretty easy compared to those other numbers or codes, whatever you want to call them, monstrosities. All right, let's do some cat tests. We have some data PIDs up for the catalytic converter, and we're going to run the engine at about 2,000 RPM, warm the catalytic converter up. What the computer looks at to monitor the catalytic converter's function is the front O2 sensor should be active and controlling fuel trim, and the secondary one should be slow. Once the converter heats up, it should slow down, and it's showing you that the converter is doing its job. Basically, it'll kind of flat line, it won't move around a lot because the converter does its job. That rear O2 sensor doesn't have much work to do, right? So we'll compare these two right here. Air ratio value before catalytic converter, oxygen sensor after catalytic converter voltage. I don't know why they don't describe them similarly, but I believe we got the right data PIDs for a broken motor wonder or something. I'm going to bring up the engine speed a little bit, and we're going to watch the O2, and this after catalytic converter should be reading quite a bit lower than that, 0.6, somewhere in the mid-range. It doesn't want to be showing you too much. Shouldn't show you any oxygen really, but see how it's still kind of moving around a little bit, and this car is hot. The possibilities are a contaminated catalytic converter that's not able to do its job, or just a worn out catalytic converter. It's only got 95,000 miles, it's not a lot. Most of the time when converters go bad, they're just contaminated, but they're almost impossible to clean very well. You can put chemicals in the engine and try to help it. You can run it really hard and get the converter hot, try to burn it out. Generally you end up replacing the catalytic converter. I've done those kinds of things over the years and not had much success. It's very limited. You know, 15-20% of the time you might be able to clean the converter out, get it working for a little while, and then the code will come back. So I tend to just replace them, and I try to always use a factory part, because those aftermarket cats are cheaper because they have less of the materials that do the job. Let's go out up front and tell them what we found in this car, and we'll see what's happening. It's very mad I have the door open too. I also have the hood open because I do want to take a look around under the hood, make sure I don't spot anything obvious. Even though we changed the oil last, it's possible that a human being could miss something. So we'll take a quick look around, and we'll come back to this one if we're going to go any further with it. 2010 Kia Forte, a staple of economic luxury or something like that. Shifter bushing came apart. I already pulled the cover off real quick. We had to push it in and all, so either that or drive it in by taking the cover off and putting the eyelet back on. So we're going to do a little eyelet repair in this real quick. They don't want to do the whole cable. It's too much money. We'll see what we can do. I apologize about the key chime. If you don't put it in park, you can't take the keys out. But I'll show you guys along the way. I got to take the console out from 2 Phillips screws in the front, a couple in here I believe, and a couple down on the side, and this console will be out of the way. Well, those are 10s down there, but I can see those are Phillips. Just got to slide the seat forward and grab a 10. Bing, 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 bing. It's like Chinese water torture, but you do eventually get used to the key chimes and stuff. Because jobs like this, you don't have a lot of options. I could disconnect the battery. That's no fun. Sometimes you got to test yourself, see what you can endure. Well, look at that thing. I don't think I even have to take this all the way out. I just got to get to the shifter bushing. There it is. Look at that son of a gun. So I could probably, get over here. See if I can get this in park and get that key to shut up. All right, our first attempt is this kit from Napa, 615-1434. Looks like cost us $11, sells for $32. I don't know. Anyway, not my problem. What I do is fix stuff, so that's what I'm going to focus on. One of these bushings should fit. These look like they're the same, so I'm going to take one of these, see which one fits the shaft kind of closely. It's going to be a tight fit, but if it looks like it's going to go on and not fall back off and not be overly compressed, like if it's too tight of a fit, that's not good either. So it's a pretty finicky little thing. They basically either work or they don't, and the only way to know is trial and error. This is the only way to avoid the whole shifter cable. and the other end has an eyelet similar on the transmission end, but for some reason they last longer than the inside one. I'm going to play with this a little bit and we'll show you where we get with it, see if it'll work. First it's got to fit, first it's got to fit in the housing, which looks close. Secondly, it's got to fit on this really tight. I think that's actually better than the way it fits in this. So I'll get some needle nose, I'll try to squeeze it into this housing with the flange facing out. That'll kind of help retain it. It's all just kind of a press snap fit thing. Well, after a few minutes of trying to get this thing to squeeze on there and distorting it a little bit and all, I tried the big orange one, and that one actually fits pretty good. It lets it move, but it's not going to let it come off because there's a lip right here. This is more of a universal one, but it seems to work. So I'm going to cycle this a few times, test it out a little bit, and if all looks good and it doesn't look like it's going to come off on me, or on the customer more importantly, then we'll put it back together. But we're definitely going to try and cycle that thing a dozen times or so. Make sure that cable never tries to pop off. Get this console back in. It's working good. Pretty happy with that. I will take it. Now I got to go under, and I got to get the wiring off the shifter out there. There it is. Look at you wiring you. Got to get it over the carpet, and through the woods. To Grandma's house we go. The seat belt's got to fit outside. A couple more cycles just so I feel better about it. Alright, this thing good. Let's finish putting this thing up and see what's next. 2018 Chevrolet Impala no start. Full disclosure, I went out in the field and put my top Don JS3000 on there, fired right up, drove it in. So the no start is a bad battery. Or there's a draw on it. I don't know. The door wasn't closed all the way and the battery was stone dead, and then it started. That's all I can tell you at this point. So we'll check, make sure it's charging, and maybe look at some codes. And he also wants the AC looked at. Let's go inside and have a peek. Before we go inside, let's take a peek real quick at the charging system dealio. Oh, it's not charging. Well, that's no good. There's our alternator. Okay. It's all connected. Controls. Usually what this does is a computer will control it, and sometimes they have internal regulator and external. 3.6 volts. And the other wire, 7.2 volts. So it's trying to make a charge. It's got a bad alternator. Let's go inside now and take a look now that we're past that. It's got the old skunk battle going on. And 129,269 miles on this 2018 Impala. 5 years old. That's probably, what, 25,000 a year? That's not too crazy. We got the air maxed out and nothing's happening. That's maybe the fan not on? I don't know. Let's see. Oh, look at that. Now let's see what happens. Put it on auto. Put it on a regular temperature we'd actually enjoy. Even if we want to be on the cold side, 68 would be freezing. Whoa, 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 whoa. The engine's running rough. Alright, I gotta get the battery charger on this thing. We could finish checking the AC real quick too. Well, I'm gonna roll the AC machine over here now and check the AC, but these sons of guns. That cap, I got that on. That's easy. Look at this one. Look what it did. Look what GM did. You believe them? How are you supposed to get to that cap? I gotta take the air inlet off, hook up the AC machine, then put it back together and start it up. That's right, the battery needs to be charged a little bit anyway. I gotta take the engine cover off so that I can take the elbow off so I can get the cap off the fitting. GM's fallen so far. It used to be one of the easier brands to work on. Oh, my glass guy fell through on me too. It looks like they didn't have any idea what they were talking about or getting into. And it's like the second time they called and said the glass at the warehouse was broken. I guess that's over. I'm going to go back to putting it in myself again and risking breaking a $500 windshield. Oh well. Something smells like sulfur. What the hell did you have for dinner, Bill? One of the things I always say of GM, even with their faults, at least they're easier to work on. I guess those days are over. Another problem with this Chevrolet we might run into with the customer, we have to talk to him and let him know. 1234 YF. That stuff's expensive, but it is. I wanted to at least put the machine on it first. It is full, but the compressor wasn't running when I had the engine running, so we might have another electrical problem other than the alternator not charging. I'll take a quick look at the fuses. If I don't see a blown fuse, I'm going to go up front and let them know. We'll have to go from there. Battery wasn't taking a charge, and I thought I smelled sulfur. It's coming from the battery. So the alternator wasn't charging it, neither is the charger. The battery might be completely at fault. So I'm going to back up on the alternator cell, and I'm going to put a battery in it to test it further. And at the same time, let them know this is 1234YF. So we got a couple of balls we're juggling with this one, but we'll work it out, and we'll catch you up in a moment. All right, I popped the cables off here, and you got to unsnap this from the battery case for some reason. I don't know. I got a lot of connections at the battery, which I don't like. That's where the corrosion happens, to have all these inputs for electrical systems right there. I don't understand why they do that. It should have it slightly remote to protect it from corrosion and to make it easier. So now you still got another hole down here. Once that's out, I think the battery might lift out. Sometimes they have two hold downs lately too. I don't know, I guess collisions or something. Batteries are jumping out of cars or whatever. I'm not sure. I'm going to get this out. I got a new battery here, and then we're going to do some more testing. Might be hard to see, but I had a heck of a time getting the old battery out because they got a cool little strap there. Just in case, like I said, they come flying out and crashes or something, I guess. Not sure what kind of battery this is. It doesn't say. I believe it's a regular lead acid. Toggle. Select. See if it charges this one. It's only a 12.2. It's not fully charged right off the shelf. I'm going to put a little charge in it. And I can also conveniently use the charger's meter to see if it's charging. Once I turned it off, of course. Alright, battery's charging up. Let's start this thing, see how it's doing now. Alright, engine's running. The charger is off. And the alternator is now able to charge. So I'm glad I didn't sell an alternator. When I smelled something funny, I knew we were dealing with something unusual. And that does happen. It's not very often. Now the compressor's not running still, but the Freon's full. So the customer does want to find out why it's not working. We're going to go into that. What I'll do is I'll hook up my scanner, look for odd codes that might have been caused by the bad battery, maybe clear those out and it'll work, and at least look and see if it's trying to run the compressor. It'll have a duty cycle type of thing. Let's check that out next. All right, these two are shaking hands, and we're going to see what kind of codes we have and come back. We already got a couple. Probably battery related. We may just clear them out and see if any return hard codes, that would be called. 16 BCM codes. Uh-oh. Maybe that's why the seats are so far back. They're broken. All right, I sent Katie the report up front, and Rob. So I'm just going over my codes. Got a whole bunch of them. History, power codes, history, passed and failed, power mode, start switch, battery voltage, passed and failed, keyless entry, battery, a whole bunch of codes. There's too many codes to focus on a particular one. So I'm going to go ahead and clear all these codes, and I'll see how that goes. Clear DTCs. And maybe we'll run the HVAC through a test to get it to sweep all the doors, which it kind of did from having the battery disconnected. So maybe after clearing the codes, it'll start working. Maybe we'll have to bring up some data, if not, and see if it's trying to get the AC to run. All right, I'm just going through, finding data PIDs that apply to the compressor. Since the clutch isn't running, I want to see if it thinks it is. So I'm going to bring up everything that's... A lot of times too, the compressor won't be turned on if it thinks the engine's overheating from a temperature sensor that's broken, or something along those lines. And I also would not let it run if it thinks the high side pressure is too high and those kind of things. So we'll bring up some of those data PIDs and we'll see what they look like. Right off the bat, I can see we got some problems leaning towards a compressor issue. Clutch relay command on. Air conditioning operation allowed. High side pressure is good. Coolant temperature is good. So it's probably got a bad compressor clutch. I'll have to see if we can get to the connector without too much fuss and see if there's power and ground to it. That's probably what it's going to end up being, but we'll get in there and we'll check it real quick. Sometimes if you use the back of the pry bar, don't use the front in case you're on the side that it's going to spin towards and it'll kick it back at you. Use the back. Yep. Sometimes if the magnet's weak, you tap it, it'll engage and work, but it's not doing that. So I'm going to find that AC clutch relay and make sure that's working good. and we'll go from there. If that's sending power out, it's either a broken wire or a bad compressor. My AC clutch fuse is a 10 amp, number 3. That's this guy right here. And he's good. This would be one way to test the relay. If I had the wiring diagram, I haven't taken the time to pull that yet, but if this fuse is on the output side of the relay, that tells you right there the relay is sending out power. But sometimes they fuse them on the input side, and then that won't help you. So you go to the relay, which I believe is this one, number 1, AC clutch. Nothing seems to be happening. It's hot as heck though, I'll tell you that much. I can pull it out, and I can get my test relay tool and jumper it and see what happens. I can also test really quick without even having a wiring diagram. Now I pulled the AC relay out. Does my fuse still have power? Yep. That means it's on the input side. Because if it was on the output, I would have definitely lost power pulling the relay out, right? So we'll put this in. No matter how I put this in, I know these are the input and output, because those are the only legs it has on it. It doesn't matter how you turn it. Turn that on. Compressor clutch working? No, I'm going to say this thing has a bad compressor clutch. And I'm very confident about it, because this forces it on. The fuse going into it is good, so I know power is going down there. There's a minor possibility of a wire or something, but normally only if they've been in a collision. I haven't seen wiring connectors on these broken yet, so I'd be surprised if that was the case. So we're going to recommend a compressor clutch, and we're going to see what happens with this one. This relay is hot, so I know it's been working. The other relays are nowhere near as warm as this is, so it's been trying to do something. Just not having any luck. Let's recommend a clutch. On the compressor, you may have to change the whole compressor, and we'll see what happens with this one. At least we know you can drive it now with the battery in it. All right, I'm going to put this one together while they work on the compressor estimate. Of course, I got to disconnect the hose, disconnect the lines, reconnect the hose. You know, seems kind of silly to me. Oh, by the way, if you're interested in one of these kits, I think I have these in my Amazon store. I'm not positive. I'll take a look tonight and see. It's IPA 9038A. It has most of the common relays in there, and all it does is basically you check to make sure it has a ground and a power input to run the relay. And a quick easy thing to do is put this in, push the on switch. I always try to put them in off at first, and then see if it works. And if you have a power and a ground in control, and when you jumper this it works, then the relay is bad, right? Super handy kit. I think I'm going to say it's about 60 bucks or so. I'm not positive, but I'll check on it, make sure it's in the Amazon store at least. So if you guys are interested, you can check it out. IPAtools.com is the manufacturer's website direct. Alright, that's all buttoned up. Clamps are tight, back together. This amazes me. I got to put this battery cover on. It just amazes me that there's no place else they could have put that fitting, you think, right? You're like, well, where else are they going to put it, Jimmy? You know, they got to put it somewhere. There's not a lot of room over there. Where else does that line run? Oh, it's right here. That's the AC line right there. And about 1.5 feet away is where the fitting is. Even if it measures 2 or 3 degrees difference in pressure, which it won't, but even if it did, you're going to fill it with the correct amount of refrigerant anyway. And if it reads 38 instead of 40 or 41 instead of 38, what does it matter, right? Like I always say, I'm no engineer. All I can do is deal with what I'm dealt. You play poker, you got 5 cards, that's it, you're either in or out. Do it. We've got a, trying to get this out so I can get a big 1-ton Silverado in here with power outlets that don't work. Well, someone else has been fixing it already, so I'm going to fix it now. I don't know what all the custom stuff's for, probably lighting and things like that these trucks don't come with so they can tow with it. Some of these outlets are not 12-volt outlets. So I got my meter to check and see what's going on with it and start from scratch. They said they checked all the fuses 9 ways to Sunday. They can't find a wiring diagram because it's a 22. And sure enough, it is a 22. I'm going to poke around here a little bit and we'll see what we find. These are pretty new. I think it's got like 50,000 miles on it. 40,691 miles. It's in pretty good shape for a commercial vehicle. It's a year or so old, so not that old. Anyway, let's get this fired up, see what we can see. All right, I replaced there's like 3 fuses in the circuit. There's fuses for the power outlet, and there's fuses for the retained accessory power relay. Now we got our voltage. So what it was is this little fuse up here that you can't put a voltmeter or test light in to test. It's one of the only fuses that you can't put a test light in to test. But I pulled a wiring diagram. I found a haphazard wiring diagram, very little information, but I can see that that 50 amp fuse, I tried relocating that fuse. That's this fuse here, this big 50 amp. If you move it to the top, it works ignition to the outlets, and if you move it to the bottom, it does battery to the outlets. If you look at the wiring diagram carefully, you see there's a second fuse down here, 15 amp, F1DL 15 amp, and that goes right to that power outlet, and that's this guy. And there was no way to test it, but it looked like it was open, and I used my meter set on ohms, and I tested it, and it tested open. So I went and grabbed some. We have some up front, and it's fixed. So wasted about 45 minutes just because couldn't find a lot of information. I actually found this on all data. Identifix was useless. This wiring diagram was on all data. This is the one they were using before, which is to supposedly to the same vehicle, but different from this one. I guess depends on the option package or whatever, but in any event, this one's fixed. Now we see what's next for today. Uh-oh. I know there's a release around here somewhere. I just have to find it. 2014 BMW X-Drive 26i. Front and rear brakes, resurfaced rotors. 75,000 miles on this thing. 76,677 exactly. It's going to get a love rating of 7.5 on the Richter scale. Wait a second, that's not the right scale. We're going to do some brakes on this thing. That's a little early, 76,000 miles, but if you drive it around town a lot, it's about right. Normally you don't resurface the rotors on a European car either. We're going to give it a whirl. Let's do it. I don't think there's a wheel lock. Nope. All right, let's get this thing off the ground. What do you say? Now, before you take the wheels off a broken mechanical wonder, you got to get your special Euro wheel stud kit. Kind of keeps everything lined up and makes it easier to get the wheels on and off and the rotors on and off and get things going. Because otherwise you got to hold it all while you start the bolts and stuff. You guys know if you don't work on BMWs a lot, they decided that you don't need to have studs. You should thread them into the hub. So it actually works okay. It's just a little bit of a pain in the patootie. So I always thread these on, take 2 bolts out, thread these in, and take the rest out. Now, whew, caught him just in time. Only 6 millimeters left. Pop that clip off of there. A couple of caps. I believe there's Allens holding the caliper to the pad bracket, and an Allen holding the rotor to the hub. Let's see what the neutered Milwaukee can do. Right, this time I'm not going to help it. I'm going to leave it on its own. It's up to you, little Milwaukee 3/8 extended ratchet. Go! There we go. It's literally, I can hold it with my 2 fingers. They got this thing so it only does like, I don't know, 8 foot-pounds, maybe 10. Oh my goodness gracious. How far they've fallen. A lot of these companies, they try to come out with the most fantastical product they can, build a great reputation, and then they start cutting back on what you get for the money so they can increase their profit, because it's all about profit, man. Long-term reputation, none of that stuff's really important anymore. A little uneven pad wear, but all right, let's get to it. That's one of the things I always hear. Anytime you discuss brands and quality online with people, they always talk about, well, people buy cheaper and cheaper and cheaper stuff. Well, companies sell cheaper and cheaper and cheaper stuff, and the people that are buying it generally are hardworking, middle-class people trying to save a little money. No one ever faults the corporations when they have 200, 300, 400% profit margins. Like on a product that costs them $8 to make, it's $49 in the store. You know what I'm saying? When you buy something for $49, trust me, it didn't cost them $47 to make it. But when you save money as the consumer, then you're the one who's selfish. I don't understand how people get in that mindset. Everyone's doing the best they can, and every given purchase, and manufacturers are generally going to get as much money as they can from you and squeeze it for whatever it's worth, try to build a reputation on quality, and then they cut back, increase profit. So it's just a never-ending cycle. So you just got to be aware of that and make wise decisions. It's the corporations that want you to think that the more you spend, the better person you are. When you buy those overpriced, very expensive luxury items that might be 10% better and cost 4 times as much, they love when you do that. And they want you to have that mindset. And sometimes you should do that. But you got to choose wisely. That's all I'm saying. Like this stuff, for example. It used to be like $9, then it went to $11. It's $21 a bottle now. Someone was asking me about it, so I put it in my Amazon store. And I was horrified that it was $21 a bottle now. So I put a CRC version of it, which is actually very good, Silverado, and it's $18, which is still ridiculous. It's a quality product, costs a lot of money. I'm gonna go ahead and lubricate this ahead of time. I just feel like it. And then we'll get the bracket off here so we can get the rotor on the lathe. Some of these rotors will say on them, do not machine. So hopefully it doesn't say that. I don't want to machine it if it says do not. If it doesn't mention it, we'll go ahead and cut it. I wasn't expecting that to come out that easily. Uh-oh, that's different. Let's go. It's a problem. Comes right off. Alright. First cut was a faster cut. When you pull this handle next to you, it goes faster. When you push it away, it goes slower. You always try to do a slow cut in the second cut or the final cut, just to get a smoother finish. Measured in microns. All it does is change the spindle ratio so that the rotor turns the same speed and this feeds out slower. Basically lessens the record player effect. And then you sand it afterwards too. Before you pull it off, I'll use some 60 grit or so and scuff the surface up, get a non-directional finish on it, just to help the pads seat and keep them. Sometimes the pads will want to chatter when they squeeze the rotor if the grooves are too deep and you don't put a non-directional finish. But it's not as critical as it was in the old days when they first started coming out with metallic pads. It was a little bit of an issue, but this will take a while. The slow cut is just that, slow. The way our lathe's set up, you can adjust the belt speed and all kinds of other things, and this thing takes about 15-20 minutes to do a slow cut. But the finish will be nice if the blades are in good shape. So we'll go over and start taking the other front wheel apart while this thing does its magic. Alright, this has those cool AI brakes on it. Parking brake anyway. So I just unbolt them. You can spend some time getting your scanner out, getting it to communicate. But if you see my other videos on these kinds of brakes, just 2 Allen bolts or Torx bolts usually. Hold these in. And then it's just on a spline, you just pop it off. Disconnect the electrical connector so it won't run the motor out and stuff. And the other one's on the inside. Kind of hard to see probably from there, but let me see if we can undo this for you. There it is. Once you've undone those bolts, this is some kind of a brace it has on it. Holds the wiring harness, I suppose. Yeah, there you go. It's easy. That thing's out of there. Now you just do a regular brake job. Got a little bit aggressive. The pad that I used on my Milwaukee Younger grinder is a little new. That's alright. First few miles, you got to seat the pads in for the customer anyway. That'll take care of that. It won't even be anything you could hear other than the first few stops. I'm going to clean up this pad bracket with a wire brush. Inner pad is the red dot and the outer pad has a blue dot. Everything was all lubricated earlier.
Well, it's nice that they do parties, right?
Get that bolted up. We can get that spring on there and move on to the next wheel. The other rotor is on the lathe. Make sure those are caught inside the little notch in there. Boom, right front wheel's done. Try to lubricate only the piston, get that inner pad in, and then lubricate the outside. Just a little smidge, and then you don't have to worry about getting grease on the pad. That rotor's going to take a second. All right, we got this place shut down out there. I was trying to get the front brakes at least done today. I actually had a very productive week this week. It was busy as heck. I'm going to get this rotor finished. One side missed, the other side barely missed. So it definitely had to have a little bit of a pulsation too. So each line is 2/1000ths. Get this on a slow cut and I'll finish it up before I go home for the weekend. But that's where we're going to end this video today, guys. I appreciate you watching. I hope you got something from today's video. A lot of unusual repairs today, a lot of productivity. We got a lot of cars fixed, we got a lot of cars diagnosed. A couple of them left, like the Toyota Yaris. She didn't want to put ECM in it, so she drove it home. We'll see if she's going to come back. I haven't heard that part yet. They just said make sure all your stuff's out of it. They're taking it. But in any event, torque the like button before you leave, please. I really appreciate that. It helps the channel out a lot. Maybe leave a comment. Tell me how I don't know what I'm doing or how I'm a genius, one or the other. I really appreciate the support. Over 13,000 now and growing strong. I've gained more subscribers the past 28 days than any other 28-day period before since I started the channel about 2 years ago. So that's thanks to you guys. Hope you have a great weekend, and I hope I see you in the next video because you're awesome.